I'm going to talk a little bit about insights, a little bit about what we're looking at in the build-up to the summer peak period in particular, the backdrop, the landscape that we're looking at in the travel industry as a whole, which will then lead into the bulk of the presentation, which is really, therefore, what's the kind of simple top-line tactics you can take to win in the space around the right kind of content marketing. A lot of it kind of matches some of the tactics mentioned earlier, so that's a good thing. But, you know, just as a really brief introduction, like in just 1 internet minute, so a minute spent on the internet with all the thousands, millions, billions of people online all of the time, we are seeing phenomenal engagement. Phenomenal engagement from YouTube content being uploaded to Google searches, right the way down. Who recognises the bottom logo there? Yeah, loads of you do, don't you? A million swipes per minute. Who knows? Are they left? Are they right? I don't know. But a million swipes per minute on Tinder. But like that's you know, these are new phenomenon really. Like Tinder dating is a pretty new thing, but it's fundamentally changed the way people are getting together and relationships forming. In the travel space, it's no different. So we see, you know, Airbnb, 80 million guests. I think this is over a month. 150 million references on TripAdvisor. 97%. Now this is scary. I've got children. My eldest is 10, but I've got 4 children, and they would fit into this bracket as they get older and they're travelling. 97% of millennials share their holiday pics socially. They don't even care if it's with people they know. It's just a generation where that sharing culture is just like the norm. Like 97%, if you think of that, that is a significant, and of course it's just getting more and more as generations get older and older. This is global, correct, yeah. 19, I can't remember what that one is. 5 billion travel Google searches, 5 billion searches specifically related to travel, and 61 plus. So this is the number of days. This is the lead time to planning vacations. On average, 61 plus days in the lead time. So that's where we see the first interaction to the booking on average. So loads and loads of interaction. And because of all this, the expectations, you know, they become very demanding. So 71% have done travel research on a smartphone. 86% expect travel companies to have a fast site or app. So that relates directly to what we talked about earlier. If it doesn't, you lose them. You lose that potential business. 63% expect travel companies to tailor information to them based on personal preferences or past behaviour. Really, really key. We've just gone through the GDPR switch on, which was nothing short of traumatic, I can tell you. But it's really interesting. So all of that kind of, we always say that personalisation is that fine line on privacy and should we not be kind of, is it invasive and all the rest of it. The reality is 63% of people in the travel space or wanting to travel, they want that personalisation. They want to feel that something is tailored for them in particular. Because it would be if you walked into a high street store, you'd be looked after and treated to a bespoke experience. And people expect that now online through all the channels that you interact with. So I think that's really interesting. And in a post-GDPR world, of course, how we do that and the manner in which we're able to do that becomes not necessarily more challenging, just a different challenge to think more creatively about how we engage in a legal way, to be fair. And all of that, all the demands that are now coming on a very, very difficult backdrop. So whether it's terrible weather, which we've obviously experienced just locally in the last couple of days as well, political unrest, companies going out of business because of, you know, just the economic climate and various other issues, strikes that down planes for long periods of time. And like actually over the last 2 years, it stopped being chaos. It became the norm. There was a crisis around the corner. And actually dealing with that becomes even more challenging, especially for kind of small and medium-sized businesses, but for large businesses as well. And the actual landscape's changing. So think about meta search, went mainstream. So we're in that space with our hotel ads proposition. We're in it with flight search as well. You've got the likes of Trivago, Trip going into paid kind of purchase program as well, Kayak, hotels combined. So the landscape's changing, which from a content point of view, and it was commented on earlier, is really challenging because you don't have the platforms to deliver that rich content that you perhaps used to have. And then who's owning all of this landscape? It's getting less and less competitive because you've got the likes of Booking Holdings, Expedia, buying up, acquiring a lot of these players. So actually the control is centralised into these behemoths. I didn't put the Google badge up there, but I guess we're in that space as well to a degree. And we're changing the landscape of the search results as well. So you go back a number of years, and this is pretty much what it looked like when I joined the company, actually, about 7 years ago, to what we believe is a better tailored experience for the individual. So you have a personalised experience in search with richer content, imagery, all of this which has been talked about earlier today is more inspiring and easier to navigate. And it keeps on going. So whether it's Airbnb or Amazon's travel aspirations, there's a number of things that are constantly happening and coming out of the woodwork that fundamentally change not just small subsectors of the travel industry, they wholeheartedly can change whether a business can survive or not. And we've seen like Monarch and low-cost holidays in the past, like a number of these businesses that just can't survive in the competitive landscape, and they have to try and invest heavily in order to survive, but it becomes increasingly difficult in this kind of landscape, especially when products are changed fundamentally, which changes the manner in which you are legally allowed to engage. So as we're getting into the summer period, I wanted to kind of share a snapshot of some of the things that we've been looking at that help us to inform or advise our customer base. 65% of UK travellers don't have a specific destination in mind when they begin researching their holidays. So think back to the 61 plus day average of looking for a holiday, your travel search journey. 65% of those people actually aren't hell-bent on going to a particular place. You have got a blank canvas to capture, engage, inspire with content, rich content at that early stage, because they're 61 days away from conversion. They are not at the bottom of the funnel. They are open for business, which means you've got a wealth of time and engagement to capture them. And because of these like destination-free generic queries, they're on the increase. And as we go into the summer peak period, that's exactly what happens. You get big spikes of these generics where people are still undetermined on where they go. So you've got to understand, well, what are the leading indicators? And we can tell what the leading indicators are by the highest volumes of searches. Cheap holidays, holiday deals, last deals, they all have a kind of cost insinuation, or at least a proximity to travel date leading indicator. So it's people that are, what is the availability next weekend because I'm ready to travel, or indeed, what's the cheapest deal? Destination doesn't feature, and yet we have always talked about the richness of where you're going, and that being the inspiring factor. It's actually less important to people at that early stage in the search journey, and then when you get to the very late stages in the search journey. Domestic destinations upwards in June as well, so 18% month-on-month increase when you get towards the summer peak period. That's a big spike for UK destinations, so actually we are seeing that the UK landscape for tourism is looking pretty good for this summer as well. Whether the weather stays as it is will change that, who knows, but we do quite often see this in a World Cup year or an Olympics year when you have these big sporting engagements, people do defer their travel times as well. The year of mobile, I think I've been at Google nearly 7 years. Every year I have had presentations where I've said it's the year of mobile. It kind of actually is finally. Now, all the previous times I've been insinuating, now I can definitely say it's true. Mobile queries are significantly higher on holiday queries than desktop tablet, and are much more localized, getting more and more localized for people searching for on-location experiences, and it does. There is a significant boost in experiential queries as well, looking for what to do, what are the actual activities that they can do. And then economic-wise, so I mean this fluctuates a lot, of course, but naturally you'll all see this, but the fluctuations in exchange rate significantly shape where people are looking, where people can afford to look. In particular, the kind of the Trump slump, as it's being called, impacting queries. The US has gone down, but certain locations in the US has had a big spike. Florida has had a big spike in particular. And actually we're finding that those long-haul destinations are as affordable, if not more affordable, than Spain. Spain's got significant demand, price is expensive, And as a result, people are realising they can go further afield to places like Dubai, pockets of the US, Caribbean and so on are able to win there. Oh, just highlighted what I've just said. And the effects of the World Cup, as I said. So what you can see here, UK searchers over here, I'm conscious that at the back you might not be able to see. So UK users have begun searching for air and rail transport to Russia. Been fairly heavy spikes in traffic with Russia-related travel, direct correlation with World Cup. And then searches in Russia for more localised, so bus and rail, car rental, hotels, all on the rise as the tournament comes closer. These were all taken deliberately just after all the qualifiers were finished, so we could see like all those countries who knew they'd qualified where those spikes of traffic were going to come from. We looked at the UK and Russia specifically here, but all of that is available for different markets. So challenging backdrop, lots of complexity, very competitive landscape. You all operate in that competitive landscape. So what do you need to do to change a user's behaviour? We've got to understand what that user's behaviour is. So I'm going to talk through just a framework that we use at Google when we're kind of helping shape a strategy or a set of tactics for getting the best out of Google platforms, but it's totally applicable to all marketing channels. It was designed by a guy based in our head office in Mountain View, and he called it See, Think, Do, Care. And some of you who are customers of ours or work with us will probably have heard of that framework before, but actually in the travel space, we kind of translated it into what it really means. Because what you're trying to understand is what people are feeling, what are the emotional drivers, and in the travel space, we translate that into the dream phase, the plan phase, the book phase, and then the actual experience itself. And if you segment into those four spaces, it helps you to kind of illustrate where you deliver and distribute your kind of media strategy, your content strategy. So be where your customers are every step of the journey. So from dream right the way through to experience, you're starting off, you want to hit the largest addressable audience. Now forget who you think your target audience is. You want to hit the largest addressable. You want every single person who is likely to consider travel to know who your brand is and what your brand stands for. Because if the minute you start tailoring to who you think your target audience is and who you think can afford, you've just massively diminished your potential sale. And as you come through, to plan phase, that then becomes in market. Are they actually in market for the type of product you offer? To book, bottom of the funnel, they're ready to book. So you're looking for the signals that actually demonstrate they are ready to purchase. They've made their decision. We need to be front of mind. And then the experience, they're on the trip, they're on the journey. What are the additional experiences that you can potentially deliver through a digital conversation that help them? And we see that in the Google space very much as the assisted travel and the assistant's actually on the journey. We'll talk a little bit about the Google Assistant when we get there. So throughout that, focus on the right metrics, value customers appropriately, attribute value. So attribution is critical. Last click is so last year. You've got to understand how people are engaging throughout that entire search journey and make sure that you are investing in each aspect of that. Don't just invest in that very last click and measure the impact so that you can continually optimize what you're doing. This is all true across everything, whether it's paid, social, every channel that you've got. So let's start with the dream phase. This is the phase where you need to inspire. It's inspirational, it's entertaining, it's joy-inducing. We all love travel. We're probably all in the travel industry because we want to put a smile on people's faces. And ultimately, it's trying to understand what the trigger is that puts a smile on people's faces. Now, we can do that. At Google, we've got a search history, so we know the kind of things people are searching for. We have maps, so we know the kind of destinations people are looking for, the type of restaurants they're looking for, the kind of movies they want to watch. All of that can be used in a marketing strategy on search. The kind of content people are looking at on YouTube, all of that is information, data available to help your targeting strategy, to help you design the right kind of content for your audience. But in the dream phase, it is about that inspiration. It's about hitting every single person that can possibly travel so they know what you stand for. So in terms of hitting the largest addressable qualified audience, people who have the means to visit your product, so in this case I've listed as a hotel, if they've got the means to visit your hotel, then they are an addressable audience to you. you can hit them through, display advertising, PPC, SEO, YouTube and social. And in particular, for us, we see YouTube as a platform playing a pretty significant role. 64% of people who watch travel-related videos do so when thinking about taking a trip. Now, that's why they're looking for that content. 3 in 5 travellers who watch online video use it to narrow down their brand, destination or activity choices. So they've got to understand what you stand for, what you offer. And 2 out of 3 of YouTube's top travel video watch time is now happening on mobile. So mobile is the platform of choice or the device of choice more often than not now where people are engaging in video. And you kind of think that it's a universe of a small amount, but if you're a commuter like I am, people are on their phones, on their tablets, watching video content. It's the norm. That's true for YouTube, it's true for Facebook video content, it's true for 4OD, ITV Player, all of these kind of forms. They're more often than not now being watched on mobile devices in increasing numbers. And for the display aspect, on top of video, we have the Google Display Network. So again, just that ability to target and reach a vast amount of users on the internet. But I won't dwell on that because I don't want to necessarily sell the product. We just want to talk about how you distribute. But then the plan phase. Plan phase is when people are much more in market. They know exactly that they are wanting to go on a trip now. So they've moved from being the largest addressable audience to those that are more in market and they're ready to plan their trip, and they're looking for experiences, and they're looking to be educated, informed, and potentially provided with a utility or some kind of options of activities and so on. So you need to show people the value of the brand and drive that consideration to inspire an action. You're now ready to inspire the action, the purchase. And again, across all the platforms that's available, and the audience that you're now targeting is people interested in traveling to your destination. So think about the products you've got, whether it's destination-based, specific star rating of hotel, a certain qualifying aspect of an airline, whatever your business is, what is the USP that you can deliver that drives that interest at the plan stage. And one example of how we do that is using affinity audiences. So again, all of that data collection that I talked about, using that to understand where the affinity drives are. So if you're looking at a trip and you understand that people's background or what a destination speaks very highly about, I think it was commented earlier, say Barcelona for music as an example, or Lisbon for fish. Are you able to drive affinity or an affinity with those kind of things that a destination is well known for, and using search history, using video content that's viewed on YouTube, and any other data provision that you can understand that you can target an audience that are also interested in those things, and so they are very likely to get engaged with those products that you have to offer. On top of that, we have similar audiences. So similar audiences, same concept, using all that data, but it's an entirely new audience. Similar audiences is understanding who your desired target audience is, those who are perhaps already engaging with you, but the ability to then target other people who are of the same description on the internet. So again, that's something that we have got the data to be able to provide. So that allows you to target an entirely new audience of people who have never visited your website, you've never engaged with before, by using the data that you've learned from those who have visited your site or have engaged with you before. And then the third phase is the booking phase. This is where search is like insanely efficient, of course, because people are demonstrating the intent. They have performed a search. They are therefore ready. You know what action they're looking for. You can deliver tailored content in the form of the search ad result or content on your landing page that inspires, because you know they're in that booking phase. You want to make it as easy to book or to buy now as possible. You've got to be there at the right time. You have to have an always-on strategy for the audience you want to hit, and it's about driving that action and the booking. As you can see here, like video content plays a smaller role here. You're not trying to inspire anymore. People are ready to book. They've kind of done their research. It's very much particular. You might be doing price-driven activity here. You might be doing very particular destination-driven activity or activity-based, but ultimately, the audience you're addressing are those people who are ready to book a specific hotel in your destination, as an example. I won't do it on Google search. It's too much of a sell. But that whole audience and plus intent is really what gives a marketer power. You know, if you understand the data, you're collecting the data and reusing it. Again, referring back to a lot of what Helena was talking about this morning. But you can use the queries that are being determined, so you know what the intent is there. Combination of those two things gives you entire power to drive the action that you want out of your desired audience. And those that don't necessarily act in the way you want to, obviously through analytics and understanding how the action has been performed on your website, that allows you to go back and remarket to them. You either, you know that their intent to be there and they fell off because the price was too high, so you can remarket with a better, more affordable price or a different option on the destination, or you realise they fell off because they just fundamentally weren't right for your product, and you can then negatively retarget them. But it allows you to kind of hone in and influence your tactics there with the right kind of content and the right kind of action. And here, in-market audience is classic because we are able to use the data to understand who that in-market audience is, so that you can bid specifically to target those people and have the right content strategy to deliver that tailored ad directly to them. So in-market for travel, for example, can be based around any of the subcategories listed here: bus and rail travel, car rental, cruises, and then within air travel or hotels and accommodation, you can kind of even drill down further: hotels by star rating, vacation rentals, or air travel by destination. So just really trying to home in on exactly the right target, so you're wasting as little money as possible on your distribution strategy. And then finally, the experiential piece. So this is where you want to surprise, delight, and reward. This is where your product has to stand up on its own 2 feet. Everything that you have delivered to them with your content leading up to this point has to be true, has to have been relevant. There can't be any nasty surprises. So you need that experience to be as best as possible. And it can start before the actual holiday or trip starts itself in various ways. You can do that through a marketing strategy. So people who have visited and are advocates of your product and they might want to come back, or they might want to talk about it. That's where you get into kind of social channels, using those influential people, using reviews and so on to drive more awareness about the experience. For us, CRM integrations, so Customer Match is a product that where you've got an understanding of who your customer base is, existing customers and so on. You're able to target exactly those people that you know already with personalised messaging, excluding current customers if you're doing an acquisition strategy, or again finding similar audiences. But all of this is applicable whether it's search marketing, email marketing, video. We have YouTube here, but any video kind of media distribution, but massively through social channels as well, because you're looking for advocates, and through advocates that drives affordable or free awareness as well. So customer reviews, and this is where TripAdvisor, Holiday Check, Trivago, so a lot of these partners that we would work with and distribute travel through our distribution platforms are significantly strong ways to drive a different type of engagement than just straightforward paid advertising. So understanding why people are searching and what those triggers are for better engagement and why they book one thing over another kind of comes full circle, because it then informs your actual content strategy. For example, designing a video piece that speaks to an audience in the way that you have learnt from previous users they want to be spoken to, and the kind of things they're looking for when they are considering your product area. So I'm going to just try and play this short video from Airbnb that kind of highlights exactly that. So the insight they had was it sincerely that when people are looking at Airbnb, it's less about the actual product, because a flat, a house, whatever can vary so much. It's more about the experience they've got in the local area.
Now on Airbnb, you can book things to do when you travel. Airbnb Experiences are activities hosted by locals, like expert surfers, seasoned chefs, and other cultural connoisseurs. Explore a city through their perspective, from curated tours of culture, art, and food, to workshops and classes. Get a fresh take on activities you love, or try something brand new. Tap on experiences to see what's out there. Browse based on interests like photography and nightlife. Or give back with a social impact experience. And rest assured that all experiences meet Airbnb's high-quality standards. Start exploring now.
So that's kind of using an understanding of who their users are to drive the kind of content that they then deliver. Example of a digital media plan that fits into all of those stages, which I think is quite a nice framework to use when you're determining what kind of strategy or what kind of channels you're going to use to deliver your content. I won't show this because I'm conscious I've run a little bit over, but I do urge you to look up the video here. So Hostel World, they used a lot of their user signals and understanding of what users wanted when they're looking for a hostel, the kind of decision-making focus they use, and the challenges when you're traveling in a hostel, language barriers, when you're traveling around and there's lots of different travelers with you, and the fact that they get most of their commission on the first night of stay, because it's a booking per night, but not on subsequent nights. And they wanted to obviously drive more usage, therefore, of their app to have better engagement and get people booking through their app on a more frequent basis. We can share the link around for this again because it's a fairly lengthy video. And that does conclude my session. So thank you for your time. Thank you very much.